Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you try, something bigger seems to prevent your financial life from flowing? As if there was an invisible barrier between you and the material tranquility you are looking for. Perhaps you have even experienced that silent feeling of injustice, working hard, fulfilling your responsibilities, but never seeing money staying in your hands. This sensation, which seems inexplicable at first glance, has much deeper roots than modern logic can explain. And what I am about to share with you is a powerful teaching, hidden for decades by those who have understood that there are certain times for certain knowledge to be revealed. This moment now may be yours, because when everything seems to be crumbling, it is a sign that something sacred is ready to emerge. Few people know, but Padre Pio, the same one that was venerated by their spiritual gifts such as bilocation, the inexplicable healing and the stigmas he carried for decades, was also a deep knowledgeable of the hidden dynamics between the spiritual plane and earthly prosperity. It was not uncommon for financially desperate people to resort to him in search of comfort and guidance. And while many of these stories have never been officially recorded, they were passed from mouth to mouth among those who lived closely with the saint, especially among those who served in the church of San Giovanni Rotondo. It was there, in times of confidence, that Padre Pio shared with few chosen a ritual he called the silent gesture of liberation. My boulevard grandfather, which served as an assistant in the parish of San Giovanni for over 30 years, was one of those chosen. According to him, Padre Pio believed that financial scarcity was not a destination, but a reflection of spiritual disconnection. When the channels of faith close, the paths of abundance also block themselves, not by divine punishment, but by energy contamination, by thoughts rooted in fear and unworthiness. The ritual that Padre Pio taught was simple in his form, but sacred in essence. He used accessible daily life, but with a deep symbolism and the pure intention to open his hands and hearts for what God had already separated for each son, a life of peace, purpose, and provision. Before I died, my uncle-grandfather called me a secret. His hands were already fragile, his teary eyes, but there was a serene urgency in them. He told me about that teaching and asked me to share it only when he saw the world sunk in such a deep crisis that even the most honest could find natural exits. At that time, he said, the hearts will be ready to receive because they will have suffered enough trying to alone. Looking around today, seeing indebted friends and neighbors, whole families living in fear of tomorrow, I realized that this time has finally arrived. And that's why I'm here, to give you what has been hidden by generations, but now needs to be practiced urgently, and faith. You will not find in this video a magic formula nor an illusory promise. What you will find is a spiritual path, an ancestral rescue that does not promise rapid enrichment, but reconnecting with the divine origin of abundance. Father Pio taught that the first step in transforming financial reality was to purify the hands, because it is through them that we created, received, offer, and transform. When they are loaded with pain, fear, guilt, or frustration, they block everything the universe wants to deliver. Therefore, according to him, the energy cleaning of the hands was a sacred practice that preceded any blessing. Think about how many times have you felt that everything went wrong exactly when you needed something that right? How many opportunities have you seen escaping for details? And more importantly, how many times have you been thinking that you might not be worthy of prospering, as if wealth was something reserved for others? These beliefs, Padre Pio said, do not come from God, but from the distortions that have settled in the soul over time. And the ritual is the means by which these distortions begin to be washed. This ritual, which you will know in detail in the next block, does not involve any practice that goes against your faith. On the contrary, he is an act of moving prayer, a gesture of incarnate faith, a physical symbol of his choice for a life of fullness. It requires only 3 things: coarse salt, clean water, and bay leaves. But what activates these elements is not matter, it is the intention, devotion, the recognition that you are ready to change from the inside out, because it is no use wanting prosperity without being willing to release what keeps you stuck to scarcity. And this is the deepest spiritual work, to give up the certainties that keep us small, to welcome the abundance that expands us. Father Pio knew that transforming reality was not a matter of luck, but of spiritual opening. He said that God never fails to provide, but we often fail to receive. And to receive, you need to clean. Clean your hands, clean your mind, clean the soul. This ritual does not replace your faith. He amplifies her. Does not replace your work. He enhances him. And most importantly, it doesn't require you to buy anything, just that you surrender. May you reserve a few minutes a day to remember who you are, who created you, and what you came to live in this world. The first time I heard my uncle-grandfather tell me about the ritual of the hands that Padre Pio taught, I confess that I thought it was hard to believe that something so simple could have such a deep effect. I grew up listening that prosperity came only from effort, sacrifice, renunciation. I never imagined that my faith could also express itself through a physical, intentional daily gesture, like washing my hands with a consecrated mixture. However, he looked at me with deep calm and said, "It is because it is simple that it is powerful. God does not hide his miracles in complicated formulas, but in the hearts arranged." Those words have been recorded in me, and today they make even more sense to see how so many people live up to an idea that abundance is the privilege of few, when in fact it is everyone's inheritance. And now, with respect and responsibility, the time has come to reveal exactly how the ritual taught by Padre Pio should be accomplished. But before any external gesture, there is an internal preparation. This is perhaps the most important. The ritual does not start with water or salt, but with silence, with the decision to enter into a state of presence, of humility and openness. It is as if the Spirit said, "I am here, ready to align myself with what God always wanted to give me." So first of all, find a quiet space in your home. It doesn't have to be big nor special. Just be clean, silent, and free of distractions. External organization is a reflection of its internal intention. Simplicity is welcome, but reverence is essential. Then take a glass or ceramic bowl. Never use plastic or metal, as these materials interfere with the energy purity of the ritual. Put a liter of mineral or filtered water inside it. While water drips, mentally visualize that it carries the energy of fluidity, renewal, transformation. Now add 3 tablespoons of coarse salt, preferably sea salt. While salt touches water, repeat with faith and firmness. Just as this salt dissolves in this water, which also dissolve all the blocks that prevent my prosperity. Repeat this 3 times. This number is not random. Father Pio said that the Trinity was a balance of balance, body, mind, and spirit united in intent. Now comes one of the most symbolic elements. The bay leaves. They have always been associated with victory, realization, recognition, not for superstition, but for its ancestral symbolic field. Take 3 sheets. The first represents the basic provision, what sustains its dignity, food, home, health, safety. The second represents growth, new opportunities, gates that open, ideas that flourish. The third represents generosity, the ability to not only receive, but to share their prosperity with those who need it. When putting each sheet in the water, close your eyes for a moment and say in silence, "I get." Imagine that these 3 areas of your life are being blessed now. With the mixture ready, slowly immerse your hands on it. Not in a hurry. Feel the water temperature, the touch of the salt, the subtle laurel aroma. Let your hands rest for a few seconds before starting to wash them with slow, circular movements. Meanwhile, recite with faith the prayer that was passed by my Bustavot uncle as having been taught directly by Padre Pio. "Divine Lord, purify my hands so that they are worthy of their blessings. Just as I wash my hands in this holy water, lava of my life, all the energies of scarcity and limitation, receive, create, and share divine prosperity. Say this prayer with intention, as if you were talking to Christ himself. Because in a way, it's stay with your hands in the water for at least 3 minutes. Don't worry about telling the exact time. Trust your feeling. You will notice when it is enough. At this time, visualize the past being released. Memories of difficulties, financial trauma, failures, humiliations. See all this dissolving, being carried by water like dried leaves in a flowing river. Now visualize what you want to see in your life. Paid accounts easily, tranquility when opening your bank statement, freedom to choose from, resources coming by unexpected paths. Imagine this with details. Do not fantasy, do not be fooled. Just feel what it would be like to live like this. Let your heart experience this reality for a moment as if it were yours. When you finish, do not dry your hands with towels or cloth. Let them dry in the air. This is symbolic, but also energetic. Padre Pio believed that the spiritual residue of the ritual needed to be absorbed by the skin as an invisible seal. When you get up, stand up with your palms facing upwards in receiving position. Lightly lift your face, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and say clearly with presence, my hands are now purified and consecrated as channels of divine prosperity. Everything I play will thrive. All the doors of abundance are open to me. The money flows to my life in expected and unexpected ways. I am grateful for all the financial blessings that I receive now and always. After the ritual, it is very important to discard water with conscience. Never throw in the drain or toilet. This symbolically blocks the flow you just activated. The ideal is to shed this water in a plant of plants, in a garden, or somewhere where the earth can absorb its energy. Bay leaves must be buried as a spiritual planting of what you want to see. If you don't have a garden, you can use an ordinary vase. What matters is the symbolic gesture of returning to earth, what carries your request, your faith, your surrender. This ritual must be repeated for 7 consecutive days. 7 is the biblical number of perfection and the full cycle. Many people report feeling the first effects from the 3rd day. Unexpected money that arrives, an old client who comes back, a conversation that turns into a proposal. But don't wait for the miracle as a prize. Live the process as a reunion with its true essence. Because the greatest transformation this ritual offers is not in the financial result, but in its reconnection with the divine flow that has always been available, but for some reason you had failed to access. Now that you have known all the details of this powerful ritual taught by Padre Pio, I need to ask you something very important. If this message touched your heart, if you felt true in every word you heard, then subscribe to the channel right now. But do this not only as a click, do it as a symbolic gesture, as it says, I am ready to walk more faith, more clearly, with more awareness of my spiritual strength. And besides, tell me something special in the comments. What did you feel while listening to this ritual? It was calm. Was it hope? Was it emotion? Share with your words, your way. It doesn't have to be beautiful, not perfect. It needs to be true, because when you write, you anchor, and when you share, you strengthen the faith of others who, like you, are looking for something bigger. Perhaps the biggest mistake that many people make when thinking about money is to see it only as a matter of mathematics, work, or luck. For a long time, we taught us that prosperity was a direct result of our productivity. Work more, win more, study more, get more, save more, live better. But how many people do you know that they do all this and yet suffocated, limited, indebted? How many families have you seen if you disrupt even with apparent stability? How many bright professionals live in a silent cycle of scarcity, as if something prevented them from getting out of place? The truth, Padre Pio taught, is that the spirit world directly influences our material reality. When we ignore this principle, we are trapped in an effort that never seems to be enough. But when we understand this connection, everything changes. Padre Pio said that money, however much material, is also a form of energy. He does not move only by logic, but by vibration. It is not only attracted to numbers, but with conscience. This does not mean that the effort is not necessary. What changes is the way this effort aligns with something bigger, and that's where the impact of the ritual you met. This is not just a symbolic bath, but a silent reconfiguration in your energy, your thoughts, your deepest emotions. It is as if, when washing your hands with that consecrated water, you were also washing the beliefs that for years prevented the flow of abundance in your life. A few years ago, I shared this ritual with a lady named Lucia, who sold sweets to support her 2 children. She came to me in a moment of pure despair. Customers disappeared, her energy was exhausted, and the rent was already late for 3 months. It was visible that the problem was not a lack of effort. It was weight, emotional weight, spiritual weight, accumulated weight of a lifetime hearing that money was a thing of rich people, that poor had to conform, that fighting was the only option. Lucia started the ritual with suspicion, but something in her said she needed to try. On the 4th day, an old neighbor who didn't even know she was still selling sweets ordered 100 units for an event. On the 6th day, a neighborhood bakery invited Lucia to provide its products regularly. She cried, but not financial relief, but liberation. Because at that moment she understood that her fight was no longer against the world, but with what she believed about herself. And there, she started to change. The ritual does not bring money falling from the sky, but brings clarity. It doesn't solve your debts with magic, but makes you see paths, have ideas, attract people, negotiate more confidence, believe more in yourself. Father Pio said that when the soul purifies itself, matter responds, and when your hands are consecrated, everything you play begins to flourish. This is not metaphor, it is applied spirituality. They are invisible seeds being activated inside. Therefore, by repeating this ritual for 7 days, you are not just performing an external act, is planting 7 seeds, 7 quiet statements that you are available to live a new reality. And it is at this point in the process that many are afraid. Yes, fear. Because as much as we desire prosperity, it requires us to leave behind what kept us in scarcity. Some people are frightened to realize that the changes have begun. A debt is forgiven. An old project reappears. A relative invites to a society. A lost customer resurfaces. And oddly enough, there are those who refuse these opportunities for fear of not being prepared, for fear of working. This is why it is so important to make this way with conscience, not only as an external ritual, but as a reunion with his faith, with his value, his merit. Padre Pio said that the strongest enemy of abundance is not misery, but the belief that you do not deserve it. That's why so many people, even when they make money, end up losing everything later, because something within them still doesn't believe they can, they should, they are worthy. If you have gotten here, it is because something inside you has started to move. Maybe you have felt shiver, perhaps emotion, maybe that silent feeling that you are hearing something you already knew, but you had forgotten. This is a good sign. It means that your soul is remembering. Remembering who you are, what you came to live, what God prepared for you even before you are born. Yes, because prosperity is not a privilege, it is a plan that may have been postponed, diverted, or asleep, but it was never cancelled, and the ritual is a key that begins to open the doors of this plan. Only a key by itself changes nothing. It is you who need to rotate it. As the days of the ritual advance, a subtle transformation begins to happen. Not only in external events, but above all in the internal space. Something that once seemed unreachable begins to become possible. The mind, which once clung to fear, gradually opens up to the idea that there is another way, less suffered, more aligned with peace. Father Pio used to say that suffering has meaning only when it leads us to light. When suffering becomes imprisonment, stagnation, continuous despair, it is no longer cross and is current. And true faith has not been given to us to keep us trapped, but to free us. Therefore, this hand purification ritual is not just a tool for financial liberation, but of spiritual redemption. What is most impressive, for those who allow themselves to live the complete process, is the way reality begins to respond. Small signs begin to appear. Sometimes it's a call you'd been waiting for months. Sometimes it is a debt renegotiated with surprisingly favorable conditions. Sometimes it is a distant friend who introduces you to a new source of income. But as important as the visible signs are the invisible. It is the silence you start to feel inside. It is the sleep that comes back. It is the anxiety that decreases. It is the heart that looks less heavy. All of this are indicators that the flow of life is returning to its natural course, and you are coming back to Him. Many people report changes that seem miraculous, and maybe they are. But Father Pio always warned us, the biggest miracle is not what happens outside, but what changes within us. Because when the soul awakens, the world has no choice but to respond to the new vibration it emits. And that is precisely why this ritual has been a watershed in the life of those who practice it with faith, discipline, and gratitude. It does not depend on religion, dogma, institution. It depends only on an inner choice. The choice of reconnecting with what has always been available, but which for wounds, beliefs, or trauma, you stopped accessing. It is important to remember that each person has their time. For some, the signs come on the first or second day. For others, in the second week. This does not mean that it is not working. It only means that each soul has its own journey, and that divine wisdom respects each other's rhythm. What matters is not giving up, it is continuing. Because constancy is what seals the commitment, and the commitment is what arouses the merit. Father Pio was deeply committed to every soul that sought him. He gave no answers ready, he gave directions. And the ritual of the hands is just that, a path, not a shortcut, a process, not a magic, an opening, not a promise. A woman named Teresa, who had lost everything after a traumatic divorce, began the ritual for the sole purpose of trying to sleep better. She didn't even think about money. It was too tired for that. But by repeating the gesture for 7 days, something inside it began to change. She remembered an old skill, abandoned for years: embroider. It was something he did when he was young with his grandmother. On the 8th day, without much planning, he began to embroider a piece and posted on a social network. Someone saw, ordered. Other people started commenting. In less than 2 months, Teresa was earning more with embroidery than he earned before as a secretary. And the most beautiful of all this is that she didn't seek profit, she sought peace. And when finding this peace, the rest came. This is the quietest secret of true abundance. It is not born of greed, rush, or obsession with results. It is born of the reconnection. When the soul realizes with what is sacred, money becomes a natural consequence, not as a trophy, but as a reflection, the reflection of a mind in peace, an open heart, of a life that flows. This is why the ritual must be maintained even after the initial 7 days, not with rigidity, but with reverence, once a week, as those who water a spiritual plant that needs care, presence, continuity. Because abundance, like faith, is not something that is conquered. It is something that is cultivated. As fruits appear, it is also common to arise another challenge: guilt. Yes, there are those who feel guilty of starting to prosper. This is because for a long time we taught us that wealth and spirituality do not match, that those who have a lot have to be suspicious, that suffering is purer. Father Pio fought this distorted view firmly. He said the problem was never the money. The problem is attachment, it is greed, it is fear. But when money comes to fulfill a purpose, to be an instrument of love, to generate freedom, it is blessing. and every blessing needs to be honored, not denied. So if you start receiving more, don't sabotage, do not hide, don't be ashamed. Famous, thank you, use wisely, and never forget where it came from, because true abundance is not just for you, it also passes you. Father Pio said that those who bless with what they receive become a continuous channel, and who closes their hand closes the flow. May your prosperity be a bridge that connects your past to your future, your fear to your courage, its scarcity to its mission. Getting here was not by chance. You have crossed with me a path made of spiritual memory, of reunion with a silent wisdom that inhabits the simple gestures, revived hidden teachings, accessed forgotten images, reconnected with what the soul already knew, but the mind had buried under the weight of daily emergency. This hand purification ritual, transmitted by Padre Pio with humility and devotion, is not an end. He is an opening. A new door that was opened to you, inviting you to live differently, more calmly, more consciously, with more confidence in the presence of a God who did not raise their children to begging love, livelihood, or meaning. But we need to honor this new stage, because now that you know, you can no longer say you didn't know. Now that you heard, you can't pretend you didn't hear. You received a seed, and a seed is not planted and forgets. It needs care, surveillance, water, and sun, of a fertile soil that begins within you. A willing heart, a clean mind, hands that open not just to receive but to bless too. Because those who receive with gratitude multiply, and who multiplies transforms. Remember what Father Pio said, God created us to live in full. Fullness is not exaggeration, not ostentation. It is having the necessary and something else to offer. It is being able to sleep in peace and wake up with purpose. It is knowing that regardless of the value that enters, your soul remains light, generous, and free. And if you have come to this moment of the video, you may have felt this lightness approaching you. Don't ignore it, because when the divine presence manifests itself, even in the form of a chill, a knot in the throat, or a silent tear, it is there saying, I am with you, and you deserve to live something better. Maybe today you are still in the midst of chaos. Perhaps the accounts continue to win, the slips do not give a truce, and the head weighs with concerns. But something has changed. Because now you are no longer walking in the dark, you are walking with conscience. And this conscience is more powerful than any bank, any boss, or any crisis. The awareness that there is a spiritual flow that wants to pass through you. And the more you clean, the more it passes. The more you bless, the more it spreads. And the more you trust, the more it becomes concrete. Because faith, Padre Pio said, is to trust even when nothing makes sense. And those who trust with an open heart will never be helpless. Now, in this closure, I want to make a special invitation, not a technical request, but an invitation with soul. If this video, this experience touched you in any way, if something resonated inside, if you felt accompanied, comforted, inspired, then I ask you subscribe to this channel, but do this as one who enters a house where he was welcomed, as who decides to continue a walk with those who speak his inner language. Here you will find more than videos. It will find a space where spirituality and practical life are, without judgment, without ready-made formulas, only with delivery, listening, and sharing. And if you can, tell me in the comments your story. What did you live here? How did you feel hearing about this ritual? What has changed inside you in these minutes we spent together? What did you learn? What memories came? What hope has rekindled? Don't write to me, write for you. Write to the community that grows here, day after day, made of real people with real pain and dreams, who are also seeking a path of light. When you share your truth, you illuminate someone's way. And this in itself is already an act of prosperity. May God bless every step you give from now on, that the blessings that were retained begin to flow. May your home be cleaned with all the energy of scarcity. May your hands be channels of visible and invisible miracles. And that the faith that brought you here is the same as that takes you even further. I believe in you. And most importantly, God believes. Always believed.